So we're back about a half a day late. I think that the ghost of Frank Sinatra was trying to prevent us from recording this episode.
Alright, move on.
Yeah. Now, I don't know for sure, but it's not like he wasn't not making us record that double negative, right? Anyway, we'll move on. Life is not always fair. What if you found yourself down on your luck? An accident has left you in debt and addicted to painkillers. How far would you go to set things on the right track? Would you rob, become a con artist, or just maybe kidnap? Of course, you'd have to pick the target carefully. It'd have to be someone with money, enough money that they could pay it out without any real problem, and someone with money has power, so the target would have to have money, but no real power. Maybe an entertainer. So you pick the 19-year-old son of one of the most famous entertainers in the world. Easy peasy. Welcome to History is Criminal. I'm your host, Mick Biddick. And this week, Kim and I are jumping back to 1963 Lake Tahoe and the kidnapping of Frank Sinatra Jr. With me, as always, is a beautiful, wise, unqualified, unapologetic, my wife, Kimberly, ready to travel back to 1963 California Nevada border and a not very bright idea.
Not very bright idea. Honey, this wasn't even a light bulb moment. More like somebody shaking a flashlight with dead battery idea.
Now, it doesn't require a great deal of explanation to know that Frank Sinatra Jr. is the son of Old Blue Eyes, the chairman of the board, Francis Albert Sinatra. Sinatra Jr. was born on the 10th of January, 1944, to Frank Sr. and Nancy Barbado. He was sandwiched between his two sisters, Nancy and Tina. Technically, he was not a junior. His father's middle name was Albert, and his was Wayne. But when your dad is one of the most popular singers slash actors in the world, the junior comes naturally. Frank Sr. just wasn't popular. He was a multi generational icon who had been on top of the entertainment industry for 2 decades by the 1960s. He had powerful friends in the industry, politics, and supposedly organized crime. He was also well known for his temper, that at times was displayed violently. Before hitting it big, Sinatra Sr. was known for getting into bar fights throughout the 40s and 50s. He often had violent encounters with paparazzi. Of course, who could blame him for that? And was even sued by columnist Les Mortimer when Mortimer was punched in the face by Frank after writing an article that was very critical of Frank Sr. He also had at least two run ins with hotel managers and casinos who refused to extend him credit. I'm not sure what kind of hotel manager decides not to extend Frank Sinatra credit, but it happened on at least two occasions. Then there's the Godfather connection. Now, I doubt any Sinatra family members are listening. It'd be really cool if they were, but don't sue me. I'm not saying that Johnny Fantane was based on Frank Sinatra, but some people have made that connection. Not me. No horse heads in my bed, please. So, all told, it would seem like Frank Sinatra Sr. or his family would not be the smartest of targets. So, who would look at this situation and say, yeah, he's a bad tempered singer from New Jersey with ties to the mob and the highest levels of government, but his son would be easy to get to? This decision fell to Barry Keenan and Joe Amsler. Both were 23 at the time. Keenan was a student at UCLA and had gone to grade school with Nancy Sinatra. Things had taken a bad turn for Keenan when he was involved in a car wreck. He was left in chronic pain from a back injury. His doctors prescribed a combination of opioids, tranquilizers, and muscle relaxers. Unsurprisingly, he became addicted to this feel good concoction and was broke and desperate. So he started the plot. He later stated that at first he thought of grabbing Frank Sr., but as he told the New Times Los Angeles in 1998, I decided on Frank Jr. because Frank Sr. was tough. I had friends whose parents were in show business, and I knew Frank always got his way. He also seemed to have very little qualms about causing Frank Sr. worry, stating, it wouldn't be morally wrong to put him through a few hours of grief worrying about his son.
Addiction plus desperation. Basically, shaking that dead flashlight until it gives you a plan. Spoiler, a dead flashlight does not glow.
Keenan would say that his plan was to get the money and invest it. Then, once he had enough, he'd pay back the ransom. Now, this might have been his plan all along, or it might have been a story he came up with to try and mitigate his guilt. No matter his plan, it seems he thought everything would go smoothly, and he hadn't planned on using any violence. To carry out his plan, Keenan turned to his old high school friend, Joe Amsler, and his mother's 42-year-old former boyfriend, house painter John Irwin. The trio started the stock Sinatra Jr. The younger Sinatra was just starting his music career. Despite his super famous name, he was making the round of some nice but smaller venues. Keenan and Irwin first made an aborted attempt to grab Jr. in Arizona, then a second failed attempt in LA. But on the night of the 8th of December, 1963, they would get their chance at Harrah's Lodge Club in Lake Tahoe. Around 9 p.m., Jr. was eating chicken in his dressing room with trumpet player John Foss. Keenan knocked on the door with the excuse he had a package to deliver. He entered, followed by Omsler. Both pulled handguns, not planning on Junior having company.
So basically, they're winging it. And yes, pun very much intended.
Yes, Frank Jr. and his wings. They secured Foss with medical tape. Then the two led Junior out of the hotel at gunpoint to a waiting car. It was an 8 to 9 hour drive to Los Angeles. Foss was out of the tape and on the phone with police before the getaway car had made it a few miles down the road. Keenan knew Foss would be on the phone with the police and that authorities would be looking for them before they made it out of Tahoe. He told Junior that if they were stopped by the cops, there could possibly be a gunfight. He was able to convince Junior that it was in his best interest to just go along and pretend that they were just three buddies out for a good time. Keenan wasn't wrong. Within minutes, the police and highway patrol had started to set up roadblocks along the highway. Reportedly, Keenan was able to talk their way past a police roadblock just shortly after starting their escape. Lucky for them, Junior's face wasn't as famous as his father's, and apparently at the roadblock, they didn't ask for IDs. Making it to LA, they called Irwin. Irwin had been part of the original planning, but did not travel to Tahoe for the actual kidnapping. It'd be Irwin's job to make contact with Sinatra Sr. The FBI in Reno were already on the scene by 9:40 p.m. When your dad's close personal friends with the recently assassinated President Kennedy and numerous mob leaders, the FBI doesn't waste time. The FBI contacted Senior, who was in Reno filming Robin and the Seven Hoods with the rest of the Rat Pack. Between the stress of the kidnapping and the loss of his friend President Kennedy just weeks earlier, Senior thought about calling off the production. But the kidnapping would be resolved so quickly that production was barely slowed. After speaking with both Junior's parents, the FBI figured the motive was most likely money. Surprise there. I'm not sure what other things you kidnap people for. Um, Donuts, maybe? I don't know. Their instruction to Senior was to pay the ransom and let the FBI track the money and find the criminals. Senior decided to go along with the plan.
Imagine being so famous, the FBI treats you like Amazon Prime. Immediate delivery, no questions asked.
On the 10th of December, Irwin made contact with Senior by phone and told him to await further instructions. They also told him that from that point on, all contact would be made by payphone. This caused Frank Sr. to panic, worried that he would run out of dimes for the payphone. For the rest of his life, he carried 10 dimes in his pocket at all times. Story goes that he's even buried with 10 dimes. When the ransom call came, the kidnappers demanded $240,000, about 2.5 million in today's market. Senior, clearly not worried about the money, offered 1 million to guarantee Junior's safe return. Irwin said no, that they would stick with the original 240,000. How do you react if your kidnapper and the family offers 4 times what you asked for? You're just like, well, gee, thanks, Mr. Sinatra, but we only really need the 240,000.
Maybe you get more time if it's a million and you're caught. So They wanted to stay under a certain level. I don't know.
I just don't think they were really thinking. Orders were given to place the money in a briefcase and drop it off between two school buses parked at a Texaco station in Sepulveda, California on the morning of the 11th of December. Frank Sr. gathered the money. Each bill was photographed by the FBI. Then the FBI made the drop at the selected location.
Texaco, school buses, ransom drop. It's like Mad Lib for criminals. Give me a noun, person, place, or thing, please.
Okay, quick aside here. I can't really find any information on what just happened at the drop. I would think the FBI would be watching the briefcase full of money. It was a small fortune and possibly a man's life on the line. Photograph the perps picking it up, then follow them back to the hideout, crash through the door with guns drawn, all action hero like. But they seem to have just like Keenan and Omsler pick the money up and leave. Things started to fall apart at that same time back at the hideout. Irwin started to get nervous. Maybe it was knowing the FBI was on the case. Maybe it was fear of what Frank's friends might do if he chose to get them involved. In any case, while Keenan and Almser were out picking up the money, Irwin let Junior go.
Turns out the weak link wasn't the FBI or Frank Sr. It was their own guy folding like a cheap lawn chair. This whole scheme really was just one big dead flashlight. Shake it all you want. It's never gonna shine.
So, as the first two picked up the cash, the third guy lets the victim go. Now, the 19-year-old famously kidnapped son of one of the biggest singers to ever live is just walking around Bel Air. After a while, Junior found a security guard and explains the situation. Now, once again, imagine you're in Bel Air working for guard dog security, and some kid walks up to you in a wrinkled tux. I just assume he was performing in a tuxedo at a nightclub in Tahoe in 1963. Makes sense. And this kid says, I'm Frank Sinatra Jr. I was kidnapped and they just let me go. I've been walking for hours. Please call the police. Kim, what would be your first thoughts?
I'd grab my dead flashlight, shake it really hard, and see if it suddenly starts shining the truth. And I bet Elvis just came by to pick him up and give him a ride home.
Me, I'd be like, right. And where's Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis? But the security guard must have been a little less jaded than me because he accepted the story without question. Maybe he recognized Junior. After all, his picture would have been all over the newspapers. What happened next seems a little crazy. Worried about the press, they decided to stuff Junior into the trunk of the security guard's car. If it's me and I was just kidnapped and some rent-a-cop said, I have an idea, get in the trunk. I'm taking off running. I would assume that it's another kidnapping. Now, also, instead of going to the police station, they drove to Junior's mom's house. Maybe Junior didn't know that the FBI were involved. Maybe he felt safer at his mother's than the police station. Or maybe there was another reason he went to his mom's house instead of the cops.
Who wouldn't run home after a nightmare like that? I don't blame him. After all that chaos, Mom's house is basically the only shining light in this mess.
So by the end of business on the 11th of December, Frank Jr. was safe at home. The kidnappers had gotten away with $240,000. Jr. said he only had gotten a quick look at the kidnappers' faces, saying he was blindfolded after being taken. He had only heard the voice of the third kidnapper, Irwin. The FBI did have the tape container from the tape used to bind Foss, and they would later pull latent fingerprints from the container. But as of right now, it looked like the three had pulled off the perfect crime. Now, when committing a crime, it's always best to keep your circle of cohorts as small as possible. More complication, the more moving parts, the more likely one of those parts will do something stupid. So that's what Irwin did. While getting ready to run to New Orleans to hide out for a while, he stopped to see his brother in San Diego. Like all siblings, they probably made a little small talk, something along the lines of, so what's new with you? Oh, not much. Kids were sick the other day, so that was a whole big thing. Work's been kind of busting my ass. You know, the usual. What about you? You know, the house painting thing's going okay. I stopped seeing that Keenan lady. Oh, And me and her kid, we kidnapped Frank Sinatra Jr. Just the typical conversation between brothers.
Oh, sure, just casual chit chat about the weather. And by the way, kidnap Frank Sinatra Jr. Totally normal Tuesday.
Some sources say he confessed to his brother, while others say he was bragging. In either case, as soon as he left, his brother called the FBI. Nothing like brotherly loyalty. According to the FBI official historic website, they were already well into digging up clues. But it really seems that that phone call was what gave the feds any hope. All three kidnappers were caught in less than 24 hours. And things would get a little strange at trial. First, Keenan testified that the whole thing was a hoax. Franks Jr. was in on it. It was all part of a publicity stunt to give Jr.'s career a shot in the arm. Keenan claimed that it was all coordinated with people connected to the Sinatra family. The Sinatra family denied this, with Jr. especially incensed at the allegations. It should be noted here that there's never been any evidence uncovered to show that Frank Jr. or any member of the Sinatra family had any ties to the kidnapping. But another famous star was tied to the crime.
Insanity? Maybe. Publicity stunt? Debatable. But the audacity. I've heard of crazy PR stunts, but this is straight up felony level absurdity.
Well, Keenan had some connections to the entertainment industry. Among those friends was Dean Torrance, one half of the surfer rock group Jan and Dean. Keenan and Torrance were friends, such close friends that they shared a safe deposit box. I don't know what kind of friends run out and get a safe deposit box together, but whatever kind of friends that is, that's the kind of friends Keenan and Torrance were. Of course, sharing a deposit box with somebody isn't a crime, but when a big chunk of ransom money from a kidnapping is found in that box, the FBI might have some questions. Torrance was called to testify and told the court he had no idea about the kidnapping. Then later, he asked the judge if he could amend his testimony. It seems that Keenan had told him about the kidnapping. In fact, Torrance had given Keenan $1,000 in seed money for the kidnapping. Torrance then claimed he didn't believe his friend was really going to kidnap Frank Sinatra Jr. I mean, after all, that sounds crazy. The court actually bought his story. It would seem that most people would have been charged as an accessory or at least minimum perjury for the first lie, but Torrance was given a get out of jail free card. Some claim that Jan and Dean's careers were harmed because of Torrance's connection to the kidnappers, but that could be for any number of reasons.
I need to update my understanding of how the legal system works, or maybe just accept it's Hollywood, baby.
While Torrance avoided any jail time and never faced any charges, that wasn't the same for our kidnappers. Keenan and Omsler were sentenced to life plus 75 years. That's like you serve your whole life and then they just let you sit in the cell and rot for 75 years.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Irwin was sentenced to 75 years. He was already like 42. So I don't think he's going to live to be like 109, but who knows? Those sentences seemed a little excessive. The majority of the money was recovered, and Jr. was released unharmed after just a couple of days. The sentence was appealed. It was also determined at appeal that Keenan was, surprise, mentally unstable at the time of the kidnapping. On appeal, the court stated that perpetrators harbored no malice and did not fit the profile of normal criminals. I'm not really sure what they mean by profile of normal criminals, but these guys apparently weren't normal criminals. So, in short, they weren't bad guys, and they just don't normally go around kidnapping people. Plus, the guy who planned the whole thing was a little nutty at the time. This led to them getting new sentences of 25 years. But with good behavior and parole, Omsler and Irwin each served, are you ready? 3.5 years. And Keenan did 4. So from life plus 75 to 3.5 and 4 year terms.
Life plus 75 years, then reduced to 4. I'd shake my dead flashlight, but I'm pretty sure even it can't make any sense out of this.
After leaving prison, Irwin seems to have just dropped off the face of the earth. Nothing can be found about his life. Some sources say he died in the 90s, but nothing solid could be found on him. As for Keenan and Omsler, things went, well, honestly, pretty good. Omler spent time working in Hollywood as a stuntman and body double. He worked on a couple movies with Ryan O'Neal as his double and bodyguard. After he aged out of stuntman work, he worked in construction and later moved to Virginia, where he died in 2006 at the age of 65.
From felony mastermind to movie stuntman. Yeah, that's a resume you don't see every day.
Keenan went to work in real estate and did great. His estimated worth in 1983 was $17 million. In 1998, he told his story to the New Times Los Angeles, and the next year, he and his partners were offered 1.5 million for the movie rights to their story. Now, this of course pissed off Frank Jr. Under California law, Jr. was able to file a lawsuit to prevent felons from profiting by telling their stories of their crimes. Keenan countered that the lawsuit violated his First Amendment rights. After long legal battles, Jr. won and was able to prevent the film from being made. Of course, that didn't stop Hollywood from making movies about the kidnapping. It just didn't allow Keenan or the others to get any of the profits. A straight to cable movie called Stealing Sinatra was made in 2003, starring David Arquette as Keenan, Ryan Browning as Omsler, and William H. Macy as Irwin. Thomas Ian Nichols played Frank Jr. If you're interested, it has a surprising 22% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Films can't profit. Hollywood sure can. Crazy reality, twisted logic. Pretty sure my dead flashlight would work better without.
Frank Sinatra Jr. never made it as big as his dad, although he did get a part on Family Guy. He was able to put together a long career, mostly performing in nightclubs and the occasional big showroom. He always tried to avoid any discussion of the kidnapping. There are those who to this day believe Frank Jr. was in on the crime. So, by pointing to the massive reduction in sentences, the success that Keenan and Omsler met after prison as proof of a conspiracy, Frank Jr. died in 2016 at the age of 72, and until the end, he was adamant that he was a victim, not a co conspirator.
Keenan and Irwin profit. Frank Jr. keeps his dignity, and conspiracy theorists keep busy. My flashlight wouldn't even bother turning on for this one.
In 2021, John Stamos, yep, Uncle Jesse,
Woohoo!
did a podcast called Snatching Sinatra. Stamos featured hours of interviews with Keenan, who was 81 at the time. Stamos and Keenan developed a friendship over the making of the podcast. Then in 2022, Keenan texted Stamos to tell him he was about to kill himself. Keenan was suffering from chronic pain and had bouts of troubling mental health issues. He died on the 13th of November, 2022.
Ooh, yes, Uncle Jesse. Gorgeous as ever. But this story, and then Uncle Jesse buddying up with an 81-year-old ex kidnapper, life really doesn't care about logic.
Keenan had always claimed that his plan was to use the money from the kidnapping to make himself rich and then pay back Frank Sinatra. Most of the money was recovered, including the large chunk that was found in the safe deposit box that Keenan shared with Dean Torrance. Keenan did go on to become rich, but I found nothing that showed he ever paid back the rest of the money to old Blue Eyes. This has been History is Criminal. And to tell you what, if you wouldn't mind leaving a comment on whatever app you're listening to, and if you would, you could drop us 5 stars in there as well. It really helps other people find and locate the podcast because of whatever weird kind of analytics or whatever they use over there at the podcast world. We hope to see you back here next week when we take a look at Grace O'Malley, clan leader, pirate queen, and tough as nails Irish lass. And as always, if you like what you heard, tell a friend, and if not, tell an enemy. Never suffer alone.